The Devil of Hell's Kitchen is back in Daredevil Born Again, and yes, it is a perfect return for our favorite vigilante in Hell's Kitchen. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new non-spoiler review for Daredevil Born Again, and this is my Season 1 full review. I've gotten a chance to check out the entire season early, and wow, I am genuinely so happy. And I say this as someone who is trepidatious about this. Excited, but trepidatious, nervous, and not really knowing how to, or really much what to expect from this. Because the Netflix Daredevil series, if you didn't know, is one of my favorite things that Marvel has ever done. I love that series. It's one of the most highly recommended things I will tell anyone to go watch. Same thing with the Punisher series. Absolutely love that. So the fact that you have John coming back as the Punisher, you have Charlie Cox coming back as Daredevil in his own series, and basically making season 4 of Daredevil. Like, that's what this is. This is not just like, oh, it kind of ties in. No, this is very much a season 4 of Daredevil. I think that this is just the perfect return, as perfect as it can be. I have like little questions that I have in here, but again, this is a non-spoiler review. I'm going to stay as vague as possible when it comes down to plot lines, storylines, and things that you may experience in here. I'm basically here to give you guys my overall reaction to this, as I can't dive in too deep, but I still I have a lot to say. I genuinely have a lot to say. I'll be reviewing each and every episode in full spoiler light when they release, so do look forward to those. But Daredevil Born Again is perfect to me. I don't see how Daredevil fans would be disappointed in this. Maybe a couple things here and there, but overall, like, this hit the mark. So definitely leave your thoughts down below. Hit that like and subscribe button. And let's start with my pros. I mean, that's why we're here. And first off, I mean, Charlie Cox sinks back into this role perfectly, as expected. Same thing with Vincent D'Onofrio. And they are the reason that I think this show just is to that other higher degree. Their performances are phenomenal, top to bottom. It does not matter. They are absolutely incredible as Daredevil, as Matt Murdock, and of course, as Kingpin Wilson Fisk. And this season, what was really impressive to me on this is the parallel of both of them. Because Daredevil Born Again, of course, is a very famous line from the Daredevil series. And this season doesn't follow that, I mean, directly at all. Season 3 of Daredevil was more closer in line with Born Again. But Born Again represents two different things for me personally. One, Daredevil coming back. Like, that's a thing. But the second thing, when you're watching the series, that title, Daredevil Born Again. Daredevil, for the most part, in this series, goes through something that, for me, can be very risky for a film or a show to tackle on, and to show one light of him and one light of Kingpin, Wilson Fisk. When you have Wilson Fisk and Matt Murdock kind of going through almost the same thing, but showing you that your past can catch back up to you, and that no matter what you do, if you don't tackle it head on, sometimes it will just consume you. And that consumption of power, of regret, of grief, of love, of compassion, of everything you can imagine, whatever motivates you can bring that back. And while what motivates both of them is completely different, their ideologies are completely different, they come from two completely different backgrounds, this series very much highlights a parallel between both of them, which their performances are examined to such a high degree that I absolutely loved. And I truly think, I very much truly think that they are Emmy worthy. They've been Emmy worthy forever, but this series just showcases that to the highest light. I also want to give a shout out to the editing of the series. I thought the editing of the series was pretty perfect top notch, especially when it comes down to a lot of these parallels and dissecting and telling a really through line story that tackles these themes in such a high light. I think a lot of people aren't going to recognize the editing in this, and I very much wanted to, specifically because of all the big stuff going on behind the scenes. I don't really know how they pieced everything together, what they used from the original series before they kind of rebooted and went back and fixed some things. But either way, I couldn't tell in the end of the day. I'm just happy to see how they brought this entire series to life and how they brought it back. I wanted to highlight a couple other notable actors in here that I thought did a fantastic job. Of course, Wilson Bethel is just great as Poindexter. I thought he was phenomenal in season 3 of Daredevil. The message of him in here is also great. Of course, Deborah Ann Woll is always fantastic as Karen. Come on, Elden Henson as Foggy is always good as well. Of course, you have John Bernthal coming back as the Punisher, who is just, he steals almost every scene. I mean, John, for me, was born to play the Punisher in every way. And I can say the same thing to Charlie Cox. Charlie Cox was born to play Daredevil. Vincent D'Onofrio were born to play Kingpin. These three deserve their own Mount Rushmore of when it comes down to street level stuff in the MCU. They were born to play these characters. Rest in peace to this actor, but Kamar Reyes, who plays White Tiger in here, I mean, genuinely a huge standout. Massive, massive standout in this series. He will not be forgotten. Like, I loved his role in here. I love what it symbolized. I loved him in the role instantly. In the first, 2 scenes you see him in, you fall for his character and you instantly just get locked in his story. And Born Again pushes through. You expect that good performances from a Daredevil series. For me, what I was really nervous about this series, though, was that story. Well, they can get the themes, the ideology, all that stuff down, but it's the script, the writing, stuff like that. And a lot of what the showrunner's been talking about is like how brutal and bloody and gory and violent this series is, which, yes, Daredevil was violent. Yes, Punisher was violent. Yes, what the Netflix series is where they were a little bit more graphic than what the MCU is and what we're known to see. And I was a little bit nervous that they were going to kind of lose sight, and I'll say they don't. They never did. The writing is always very top-notch in here. All the dialogue moments. And there are some episodes where you don't even get action. They focus strictly on maybe a courtroom scene. Genuinely. They'll focus on Matt actually being a lawyer. And when they don't, it's actually character moments and character beats that mean something to the story. But when the action does hit, the action is perfect. It is perfect in almost every way. Every single action scene, besides one, I only had an issue with one, and it was very minor, but every action scene in here blew my mind. Thinking about blowing my mind, the first 15 to 20 minutes of this series is some of the best that the MCU has ever had in terms of intensity, velocity, visceralness, and it instantly hooks you into the season where you're like, I need to see every single episode right away to see how they resolve this, how it's going to go, and how it's going to play out for Matt's character. And I absolutely love that in the way that it comes out. It's going to be very divisive for some fans, but I thought it was such a perfect opening. And genuinely, what you get to see is just a taste of what the whole entire show has. And again, going back to that action and what you're able to get, these scenes are so tightly niched and wrapped up. And one of the things that really blew my mind was, yeah, it is violent. It is brutal. It is bloody. It's gory. Way more than the original series on Netflix. And not to the extent where it's overly done. It just feels like they didn't pull away. They show everything. There was 2 or 3 movements of action that genuinely made my jaw drop. That I went, oh, that's where we're going. I love it. Loved a lot of what this series just really much had in store for us in terms of that action, in terms of the story, in terms of its characters, in terms of what it sets up. By the time this series ended, I sat there going, I need a season 2 right now. which currently apparently they are filming. So hopefully we don't have to wait too long. I think the rumor is that it's coming next year. I hope it doesn't get delayed. I need the season now, because I truly believe that Daredevil Born Again is just a flat out incredible return to Hell's Kitchen. Cox and D'Onofrio sink back into these roles perfectly as expected, but it's the writing and directing that personally wins me over here. It's brutal, it's bloody, the action is some of the best in the MCU. For me, as each episode went on, I found they got better and better. I think the weakest episode personally was episode 4, which I'm totally fine with, and I love that the usage of that. There's some unique episodes in here too, like episode 5 I think is going to be a very big talking point, and specifically also how Born Again fits itself and cements itself into the MCU with certain references that kind of just made me smile, and honestly never took away from any of the big core moments. It was just more of, oh, that's cool. Easter eggs are there. And before I get to like my final score on the entire season of Daredevil, I do want to give a couple little things to just keep in mind. One, I do see some fans being disappointed with the length of certain characters in here. I do want to say that this is very much Matt Murdock and Kingpin's story. There are certain actors in here that do not have as big of a role than expected. I think some fans will expect some of these actors to show up a little bit more in here. Like, I'll be honest, like Johnny B's Punisher. I expected him to be in here a little bit more. The usage of him by the end of the season I thought was perfect. But initially when I was going through the season, I was like, okay, like, what's going on here? A couple others like that where I kind of felt the same, but again, by the time I got to the end, I completely understood it, and it fit for the overall story of what we were doing with Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk. You have to have this story with them, and I really like that because it never deviates away from that. Like, they really do spend the most time with them and truly give them that. One more thing, love how they used Muse. I have one more last thing to mention, which is just to kind of keep in mind, which is... This comes up sometimes when we talk with the MCU and the overarching things. Obviously, Matt Murdock takes place in New York. There's a lot of other heroes in New York. There's a couple things that happened this season where I'm like, you know, you'd think Spider-Man would be helping out here. You'd think Spider-Man would. Maybe he's a little bit busy doing something else, but you think he would be here. Maybe the countless other heroes that should be here. Answer will be answered later on, but that's just one thing that stuck in the back of my head, and I did think about it, and I think other people are going to think about it too. Found Daredevil Born Again Season 1, or technically Daredevil Season 4, to be perfect. I love my return to Hell's Kitchen. I absolutely love this series. I think it's one of the best things the MCU has ever done, which I know is said a lot. I know that said a lot specifically, but genuinely, this is the best written thing on MCU's TV shows thus far, bar none, not even close. And I think a lot of people are going to be truly excited, happy, and not disappointed in this, and come away going, man, I need season 2 right away. So with all that said, I'm going to give Daredevil Born Again an A+. Picks aside, whatever it may be, by the end of this series, I just wanted to rewatch it all over again. And by this point of time, by the time I've had this review up, I have gone through it already again. I had to sink through it. Thank you to Disney for trusting critics with the entire season. And I cannot say this enough. This is the best way to review the series. I hope going forward, this is what you guys decide to do in terms of screeners. I think this is the best way to give us a perspective on the entire season. Because if I'd only seen the first 3 episodes like you guys typically do, I would have thought it was really great. And maybe the first 2 episodes I would have been like, yeah, this is a perfect return, but I still don't know where it's going. I'm so happy that they delivered this because I can expressively be excited about this. But right now, when I'm filming this review, it's 1:16 a.m. I just finished the series and I had to talk about it. That's how fucking exciting it is. Thank you so much again for watching this, guys. And of course, until next time, stay classy.